I have one account that currently has around $41,000 in it. And if I keep investing at roughly the rate I'm investing today, this one account could potentially be worth around $4.3 million by the time I retire. And no, I'm not talking about putting millions of dollars into it. I'm talking about continuing to contribute around $625 a month and letting compound growth do its thing for almost 4 decades. And I think this is one of the biggest examples I can give of why I talk about investing early so much on this channel. So let's actually break down the numbers. I currently have around $41,000 in my tax-free savings account. For this example, I'm assuming I continue contributing approximately $625 per month, which works out to $7,500 per year into this one specific account. I'm also using a hypothetical 10% annual return and an investment period of 38 years. Yes, some say a 10% return is a lot to expect, and I'm not necessarily expecting it. I'm just using the historical average of the S&P 500. So put those numbers into a compound growth calculator, and the projected ending balance is about $4.39 million. And that's absolutely insane when you think about it. And what's even crazier is looking at where that 4.39 million actually comes from. Over those 38 years of growth, my starting $41,000 plus all of my additional contributions would total around $326,000. So where does the other roughly $4 million come from? And that's from investment growth. And that's the part of compounding that I think is so difficult to appreciate when you're young. When you have, say, $1,000 invested, a 10% return would be $100, which, it's nice, but it doesn't exactly change your life, right? When you have $100,000 invested, that same hypothetical 10% return is $10,000. And when you have $1 million invested, it's $100,000. Now, obviously, as I mentioned, investments don't just return 10% every single year, right? Some years will be great, some years will be awful. Some years it's going to be kind of stagnant where it's not really doing much or barely fluctuating. And, you can absolutely lose money, but the mathematical principle is really what matters. The larger your investment balance becomes, the more meaningful the same percentage return becomes in dollar terms. Now, again, this is a great time, as usual, guys, for me to mention that I'm not a financial advisor, so this is not financial advice. This is always going to be for educational purposes only. So this is exactly why I keep talking about starting early. If you're, say, 20 years old and you're watching this video thinking, oh, what's the point of investing $50 a month? The point is time. You're not investing $50 a month because, $50 is going to make you rich. You're investing $50 because you're giving that money decades to potentially grow. And then as your income increases, you can increase your contributions just like I have. And that's literally what I've tried to do, right? I started investing once I had a full-time job, and every time my income increased, I've tried to increase what I'm investing as well. I'm not trying to find some magical investment, right? I'm not trying to become rich overnight as much as we would all love that. I'm trying to actually consistently put money into investments and give them as much time as possible, right? I always think of it as like, time is going to pass anyways, right? I think about this too sometimes, like whether I'm sitting on the couch doing nothing or, I'm working on a side hustle or working on bettering myself, that time is going to pass anyways. I might as well do something productive with it. And that's kind of the same way I look at investing, right? I'm going to have money in my account. I'm not spending all the money that I earn, right? So instead of it sitting in my account doing nothing, I might as well take that time and use it to my advantage and invest my money. And there's another reason I'm specifically talking about my tax-free savings account, or my TFSA. For those of you that don't know, the TFSA is one of the best tools that Canadians have for building wealth because investment growth inside of this account can generally be earned tax-free. So from what I'm told, it's quite similar to the Roth IRA for those of you who are watching this who are from America. And that can become incredibly powerful, especially over several decades. But there's an important distinction here too, right? I talked about this in a video where I went over the TFSA. The TFSA isn't an investment itself. It's just an account. So you can hold investments inside of it, but it's not, an account where, oh, you put money in your TFSA, it's automatically going to grow, right? It's just kind of like a bucket where you put money into and you can invest within that. So when I'm talking about my TFSA potentially growing to $4.3 million, I'm talking about the investments I'm holding inside the TFSA growing over time. And the government gives you a certain amount of contribution room each year. So for this year, I believe the annual TFSA dollar amount or the dollar limit is $7,000. And I've seen online that that amount is supposed to grow to $7,500 as of next year. And that's just for next year, right? This doesn't even take into consideration that that limit can change, right? That limit can increase, which, is again part of the reason I go back to, if somebody's saying, oh, 10% isn't guaranteed, et cetera, et cetera. The amount that I'm allowed to contribute is going to increase over time, right? And again, this is only in one account. I'm shooting to max out on my TFSA every single year, and that's only one account that I'm investing in. I'm going to be investing in several other accounts and of course adjusting my strategy as I get older and, my priorities and my goals change. So this is really all for just one specific investing account. So like I said, I know somebody might comment, you're not going to make 10% every year. I know, right? This is a projection. It's not a crystal ball. A 10% annual return is a hypothetical assumption for this calculation, right? Real investment returns fluctuate. There's going to be years where it goes up, goes down. There might be long periods where, I'm kind of disappointed by the returns. And inflation is another thing to consider too. So I'm not sitting here saying, I'm guaranteed to retire with $4.3 million. That's not what this video is about. I'm showing you what could happen if I stay on this general path and the investments perform at the assumed rate over a very long period. And here's the crazy part that I think is honestly the most interesting, right? As I mentioned, this isn't my entire financial plan. This is just one account. I also have other investments. I have my career. I can potentially increase my income, and I would hope so because I'm still quite young, so I would expect my income to increase. So that means I can also potentially increase my investment contributions and, as I mentioned, invest outside of my tax-free savings account as well. So when I see a projection like 4.3 million, I don't think, wow, I'm set. I think, what happens if I keep doing this and continue improving my finances? And that's really the lesson that I want to get across, right? You don't need to know exactly how much money you're going to have at retirement. Yes, it's good to have projections and stuff, especially as you get closer to retirement age. You don't need to predict exactly what the stock market is going to do. Nobody can do that, right? You don't even need to start with $41,000, right? You just need to start, right? I mentioned this in a recent video. Everybody had to start at some point, right? There was a point in time I had $0 in my bank account. There's a point in time I had 500, 1,000, right? I didn't just start with this $41,000 I'm talking about. I had to start from scratch, right? So maybe you can invest $25 a month. Maybe it's 100, maybe it's 500. Whatever it is, the important thing is developing the habit of investing. And then as your income increases, you try to increase those contributions like I have done and I'm going to continue to try to do. And that's the strategy that I've been following and it's worked so far for me. And if I continue following that path, there's a chance this one account could eventually become worth several $million. So right now I'm looking at roughly $41,000 in this account. And actually it's up right now currently, but I didn't get, down to the specific digits for it. The calculator says that if I contribute about $625 a month for the next 38 years and average a hypothetical 10% annual return or the historical average of the S&P 500, I'd end up with around $4.39 million. Again, that's a projection, it's not guaranteed, but I think it's a pretty incredible demonstration of what time, consistency, and compound growth can potentially do. And that's why I keep saying the same thing over and over again on this channel, right? Start investing early. You don't need to be rich. You don't need to invest thousands of dollars every month. You just need to start with what you can, build that habit, build the muscle of investing, and give your money time. Because 38 years from now, I might look back at this $41,000 and think that, this was just the beginning. So that's it for the video, guys. Hopefully you were able to take something from it. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.